everyone wins more than they put in. That is the key phrase that all of Stephen Clarke's businesses run off of. Every business that he creates must have that at the core. Otherwise, he scraps it. Everyone must win more than they put in. And it is how things become sustainable. Because why would anybody want to stop? It's just like the triple bottom line for people, profit, and planet. When everyone wins, why would anybody want to stop? That is why I'm super excited to introduce Stephen Clarke, the CEO and founder of RTG Group of Companies. And I really want you to pay close attention to Stephen's model that he describes here today, because it is truly revolutionary. What he has designed several times over. And in each situation, everyone wins more than they put in. And all of this is fueled by RTG, which stands for Receiving Through Giving, providing 30 meals at one meal a day for about $40. And Stephen will really go into all the ins and outs of how the model works and what an impact it is having on the giving industry. But just remember, in each one, everyone wins more than they put in. Stephen, super excited to have you on the podcast today. When I heard of what you do, it just blew me away. So I'm super excited to share what you do with everyone else and to make sure that I don't fumble along explaining it in any way. How about you go ahead and let everybody know the crazy stuff that you're working on?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Pleasure to be on here. Honestly, I think that really, if anybody were to take a deep dive, obviously I've been spent 25 years in the advertising world, so I'm well versed at finding kind of the right things to do based on data and everything that we have. But my goal 6 years ago was to make a positive impact in the world. And it was really that simple. It sounded simple. It wasn't that simple because we really didn't know what cause or anything like that. And once we took a deep dive into the space, and this was better part of 9 months that we researched and came up with real things I had no idea. And so by the time that finished, I knew that there was some challenges that needed to be addressed. And I felt the only real way to do that was by creating a new model. And that's what we did. We created a for-profit social enterprise. But as I've mentioned to you before, Billy, we know that the charities all have great intention. And for the most part, they're doing a positive work. The problem is you have a 150-year-old model that really hasn't changed. And we give a lot of money every year. People are always astounded when I tell them we give over 450 billion US dollars every year just to charities and nonprofits in Canada, the United States. Last time I told somebody, he says, no, that's global. I'm like, no, that's North America. And we need to be solving with that much money. And that is a lot of money. People who say we need to give more, we always need to give more, but that's enough money to be eradicating some of these challenges. And we're not. And so that's why we do what we do. We just developed this new model. We selected feeding because as a for-profit social enterprise, you have to sell something, right? I mean, you got to sell something if you're going to make a profit. And so we elected to make it food, and we wanted to really develop a good, healthy food, which we did, non-GMO organic. And now we're developing all these crazy models and involving all different types of people and rolling out the very first, this is exciting, probably the first time a lot of people are hearing it, but the very first social impact franchise in the world, which will launch at the beginning of Q2 of next year in both Canada and the United States. And there'll be about close to 60 franchises in that time frame. And a lot of athletes involved in NFL, but also now NBA, Major League Baseball players. So that's really cool because they all want to end hunger in their community. And that's great because by doing that, we're going to be able to fund all these other causes, incentivize volunteers, if you and I have talked about, which really do need to get some type of something payment, or in our case, free travel for doing what they do. And we're able to do that because, again, we're a for-profit social enterprise.
Definitely. So you're RTG Group, and so you have a number of different companies underneath this whole social enterprise. Can you break that down for us a little bit and maybe give us an example of helping feeding, and then you're giving back to nonprofits as well? Let's try to dissect that model a little bit.
Yeah. So all we do is RTG stands for Receiving Through Giving. And we have RTG Group Inc. in Canada, RTG Group USA in the United States. They're our main companies. They're umbrella companies. And the reason we did that is because there's a number of our companies like Purpose Driven Travel, Purpose Driven Artists, Purpose Driven Creators. These are standalone companies. Purpose Driven Artists is obviously feeding, But then the give back is about supporting the arts and the music and the dance community. And so they'll be able to put millions of dollars every year into that. Purpose-driven travel, as I just mentioned, that's the model that will be franchised, and that is all around the volunteers. 78 million volunteers in Canada, the United States, and a lot of them do their cause, like diabetes. Obviously, the majority of the volunteers have diabetes, so obviously they want to raise money for diabetes. But I've now shown them that they can raise more money for diabetes by feeding kids and get free travel. So there's always that give back portion that we give back of every roughly $40 to feed, to provide 30 meals. That's a meal a day. That's what we do. And then we've always got money to give back to the charities, back to the volunteers, or it may be a model like the vegan experience, which is all around to support the vegan community. And so we get really creative with those things. So that was the request that they came to us. And we said, okay, if you're going to help us feed 1 million kids, then we're going to be able to give that give back to invest in vegan startups so we can support the vegan community. And they love that. And then even someone's going back to new vegan events that we wanted to create, because when we did a deep dive of that space, we felt that there wasn't enough education being given to the people who aren't vegan. We were thinking everyone's running around saying, save the animals, and there's way more to it than that. And so when we talk even now to some environmentalists, for example, we talk, and people on the climate, we talk about what the vegan diet does in those areas. They're shocked. They're like, whoa, I didn't know that. We need to educate people properly. And I think we need to do that generally in all fields. But so that's the one, and that's what our give back could do.
Yeah, definitely. Education is huge for any field in any area, because lots of times people just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And you can't work on that and improve that unless you learn something. And so it's a huge part of any model is always education, being able to teach people why you're doing what you're doing, because you have an important cause that you're trying to go for, and you have to educate them on just getting them to where you are, because they're in a whole different area of their life. And so I think that's always really important.
It sure is.
Definitely. And so you went and looked at the giving industry and the way it was working, and you said, oh, this model is broken. What led you to get to that point, and why did you then say, okay, to do something about that, I'm going to create a for-profit social enterprise? What was that thought process?
So I've been associated with the charity world my entire life. I've been on boards, I've done lots of different events, I've helped, but I didn't really know, I never took a real deep dive into the space. And more people these days, and we'll come across this all the time, I'm sure a lot of your listeners will be shaking their head at this, they want to know like where their money's going and what the impact is. And especially young people, they're insisting on it. And so when I was looking at that, and it was a little bit of a gray area where exactly how much is going and what it's doing, and there's certain things that were just not sitting well with me. And so I thought, if my goal is to really make a positive impact in the world, which is what it was and still is, then I wasn't going to satisfy myself tapping to any of these existing markets, these existing models. So as a creative business strategist, which is what I was in the advertising world, I created many different models for some huge companies. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to just do what I've done in the past, and now I'm going to do it for myself. And so that's what kind of led me to say, this is what it's needed. And the biggest thing for me, honestly, was when I was looking at them all, it dawned on me halfway through all this research, Billy, was that there's no collaboration in this field. And I was an ex-professional athlete, and I feel pretty strongly, I have my whole career, that we're stronger together. And I know when I say people, they do exactly what you're doing right now. They're shaking their head, of course. But here's an entire industry that doesn't really work together. And we know why. They're all off the same grants, same donors or whatever, but they tend not to work together. And that's a flaw in any strategy. So I thought, okay, let's boil that down. Let's find out things that are needed. We already know transparency, absolutely. And now we're finding another one here that is absolutely necessary if you're going to build a new model, that's collaboration. And then the last one, which I build in every single model I've ever built my entire life, is sustainability. And regardless of what anybody talks about sustainability, I see so many different people talk about sustainability. And really it boils down to this: create a model where everybody wins more than they put in, and you've got sustainability. Because as the young kids would say, why would they stop? So that is really the key. Now, it's not always easy to do, but if you can do it, you're guaranteed sustainability. So those are the 3 points that we were really focused on. And that's what we ended up creating. In every company, every program we design, everything has got those 3 things first and foremost. And if it doesn't, we've trashed many. We've just said, no, that's not going to work. So trash it. And we move on to the next. That's really, very important for us.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's great. And so you mentioned a couple of your companies before, like the purpose-driven creators and the purpose-driven artists and things like that. Do you mind going into choosing one that you would like to dive into more?
Yeah, a purpose-driven artist, which is going to launch next month, really exciting one. And so we have our managing partner there, who's a former colleague of mine at Saatchi. She is really passionate about art and everything. And so we start talking about the size of the art community and how less and less people are getting involved in it and they need something and everything. So our model, of course, is by feeding. We must tap into existing markets so that we can better that market, just like the vegan one I told you about. So with purpose-driven artists, which is going to be really cool because it's going to involve NFTs and all the futuristic stuff. But all that happens is by feeding, that company gets money back and they have a mandate that they must give, for example, 50% back into those areas. So they're already designing, they got some really cool things already ready to rock and roll, but they will end up, so for just an example, every month, let's say, for example, we take 5 million, we're feeding 500,000 kids a month through that model with the money that we brought in, which by the way, went to purpose-driven creators and all of our social media influencers to create that 500 that fed. But now we've got a couple $1 million a month going back to purpose-driven artists. And they have to, a minimum, $1 million a month must go back in to supporting the art, music, and dance community. So they're having draws regularly. They have different ones, and they buy all that art from. No one likes to be called a starving artist, but we know them as that. But these artists who are struggling somewhat, and we're able to help purchase their art, and then there's draws probably every month, but now they're talking about every week because of the amount that we'll be able to put in. And the music side, we'll be able to book recording time for artists who want to make music, and we've got a couple of already ballet schools that we're going to do the scholarships for and things like that. So that will be their job to put back into bolster that community. Of course, there's a lot of people that really believe that art, and I'm one of them. I think art is really important, and just a world without art would just be terrible. And so that's what they will do with that. And that's the perfect example. I mean, in purpose-driven travel, it's all about the volunteers and the charity partners and everything else. In this one, it's about the artists. And so I think that's going to be really strong. But fundamentally, if you strip everything away, all of this stuff is possible because we're feeding people. And that's the real cool thing about what we do.
Yeah, that's great. You're making a way for kids to be fed and then also being able to work towards these other models, which is awesome. And you mentioned a world without art. I was listening the other day. Art is like one of those things in school that gets kicked out the door first. Your art, you remove dance, you move these other things because you have to focus on your core fundamentals, right? But what studies have shown is that they've gone into these schools that have removed art and just focus on fundamentals, and kids do a lot worse in the fundamentals because they don't have art, they don't have the creative side, they're not able to bring that into their core studies. And that's what the art and all these other things are able to do, is be able to express themselves in new ways. And you're able to take some of those things that you learn in these other more creative fields and bring them into your core mathematics and language arts and things like that. Bring them in. And that's what people miss out on. When you try to just focus on the fundamentals, you lose that creativity, which is so desperately needed. And you also have the sustainability funding program. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, that was, I don't want to say it was a fluke, but it was a friend of mine had, not that long ago really, had reached out to me. She's in the nonprofit space and she has been for a while. And she asked me if, what we could do. She's known me for a long time and said, how could I help them, the nonprofit space? And I said, got all these companies and everything, that's what we're focused on doing. But so what is the problem? And of course, we know the problem. The problem is funding. And the real problem that she explains that she goes out, they do all their stuff to raise funds, and they raise $100,000, and then they go and they spend that $100,000 on obviously doing good and whatever, and then it's gone, and then they have to go do it again, and that's just a cycle that's forever. There's no stopping that. And maybe you're fortunate enough you tap into the grants things or whatever, but again, that's a flawed strategy if you're counting on that, because the government could just say, oh, we're not doing that program anymore, and it's gone. And I know actually nonprofits and charities who have counted on government grants and everything, and are gone because of that. The government just said, we don't have that anymore, and it's done. So she wanted me to know what we could do. So we took a little bit of a dive in that for her. This was a personal project for me. And so I got back to her and I said, okay, so here's the deal. I've looked at it and I understand it much better now, exactly what you're doing. So can you go out? And she had used the figure of 100,000. So I said, so can you go out and get $100,000? She's like, yeah, that's what I do now. I said, yeah, by the way, how difficult is that? She said, it's not easy. I said, I want to make it easier for you. So can you go out and borrow, get people to loan you 10,000, 5,000, whatever, on a 4-year term loan at 10% interest? She's like, of course. I mean, that would be way easier. I said, listen, you wanted me to come up with a program, so here it is. So I said, you're going to go out and you're going to do that. And you're going to raise $100,000 and you're going to give me the $100,000. I said, then I'm going to go down to Cuba and you won't see me again. No, she said, okay, of course. Now she's okay. What are you going to do with it? I said, we have purpose-driven creators. And you know, what do social media influencers do? They sell product. So in our case, they sell food. So they're going to take that $100,000. They're going to do their campaigns. They're going to do what they've been doing for years. And they're going to guarantee that they're going to feed 5,000 kids. She says, wow. I said, that's a monthly thing because we have the app and we have all the different things. So there'll be 5,000 kids fed every single month because of your $100,000. She said, wow, that's fantastic. I said, yes. And then we have $2 that we're going to give back to you. And so right away, she's $2. Like, yeah. She said, $2, 5,000, that's $10,000 a month. I said, yeah. That's $120,000 a year. I said, yeah, we're going to do it for 4 years. So right away, she says, wow, you can't do it. I said, yeah, I can. In fact, we're doing it. So I can do it. I just have never partnered up with nonprofits to do it. She's like, what the heck? I said, yeah. And you can, she said, can I do 200? Yes, you do as much as you want. We've got, our creators are very good. I said, but that will be the deal. And then you can continue to do it at the end of 4 years. She said, this is fantastic. I said, well, not quite. Make it fantastic. Those loans, I said, we're going to pay them for you. She said, what? I said, we're going to pay the loans. And that became the sustainable funding model. And we've just, because we've only had it for a couple of months, we've just been now finalizing. We got a bunch of nonprofits now signed up. We're just starting the program. But think about that one. And as she said to me, what nonprofit wouldn't want to do this? And I said, exactly. So there's another example of how we're using that one cause. Remember, all we do is feed. And the only other good we do is because of the feeding. So we're still focused on that one cause. But as a friend of mine, one of the largest charities in the world, is the CEO, and he said to me, the beautiful thing about your model is people will look 5 years from now and say, these guys are feeding 25 million people a month. This is unbelievable. But the people know will say, yeah, look at what else they're doing. Look at all these other causes they're funding because they're doing that. So he said, that will be the really cool thing about your model. So yeah, so that's what we do, sustainability funding now. We actually own a nonprofit, my wife's company, and it's called Immigrant Women in Business. It's a Canadian company, and they're now doing the program very successfully. So now they'll become self-funded. Remember now, all of a sudden they become self-funded now. And they can do their stuff, and they can, or as one nonprofit said, that's going to be enough to pay all of our overheads and everything like that, so that every single cent that we bring in now goes directly back to the cause. So that's a good thing too. So that's what sustainable funding model is.
Yeah, that's great. Being able to say that up on your website and say, oh, every single dollar that you donate goes directly to your cause. That's
exactly.
Incredible.
And you can prove it too, because people, you know yourself today, Billy, is people are really, it's the old trust but verify. If Reagan had that and all that other stuff, the reality is today, that's never been more enforced. Now people say, prove it to me. They want to know. And so now when people do this, say, this is the model we're doing, this is what it's getting back. So we're giving that back. That's paying all of our stuff and everything. So if you give me $100 is going directly to the cause, and they can prove it. And I think that's where this industry's headed. And so those who don't do things and make some changes I think are going to be in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be one of those disruptors for the whole industry, but in a positive way.
In a cause, that's exactly what the charity CEO said to me. He said, this is the most disruptive thing I've seen in 25 years. The good news for charities and nonprofits is a positive disruption. We can play in this space. We can build together and grow together. He actually applauded.
Yeah, definitely. You're disrupting it and moving aside everyone who's already here. You're just saying, hey, come join me. Let's all grow together.
Let's do it together. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. And you're also doing work in LA too, like getting prepared for the Olympics Olympics coming up. What is the work that you're doing there? I know you're talking about helping out with the homeless that are there as well. Do you mind talking a bit?
Yeah, that's just in the infant stages. We pitched an idea to the Olympics because they're obviously very concerned. LA is not in very good shape right now and hosting the Olympics in 6 years, less than 6 years now. And so we've come up with a plan using our program and our model, building a program that will include the athletes there. And again, I was talking to one of the athletes and he said, "So you want us to give you $1 million?" And I'm like, "No, I want you to loan us $1 million from your foundation and we'll pay back and pay the interest." And very quickly he said, "I think we just give it to you. We think this is great. We'll give it to you." And we said, "No." He said, "What do you mean no? We're going to give you $1 million." I said, "No, you're not." That would screw up our entire model because everybody's got to win more than they put in. So no, you won't. If you want to give it back and do other stuff for other people, that's fine. But this is our model. So we're not changing it because it's sustainable. And I said to him, "If you loan us the $1 million and we pay you that back with 4 years, and I want to get another $1 million, would you be there?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "There you go. That's what we're building. We're building trust. We're making sure that everybody wins. And you've got a foundation that does other great things. So we're not taking away from that. So we're going to make sure you get that back with interest so you can do more there." And so I think people are starting to appreciate the fact that what we do and how we do it. And it is new and there is a mindset still with a lot of people. You've heard this, Billy, a lot of times. This is the way things are done. That's one of the most ludicrous statements I've ever heard in my life because what about 5 years ago? Was that the way it was done? No. Yeah, because things evolve, things change. Hopefully, we're always trying to improve on things. And that's what I think we've done. I think that's going to be a big one. We're still doing all the kind of stuff, and we're not even divulging the name really yet because it's going to be pretty cool. And we've got logos being designed and everything. And we expect to be in LA for a couple of months in the new year working on that. It'll coincide with we've got a great franchise that's going to be in LA. They're already working on food and everything, so it's a perfect fit for them. An ex-NFL guy, which is fantastic, and he's really passionate about it. So a lot of really good things happening.
That's awesome. And I know you mentioned too on your website that you sent to me about how you guys are also looking to work with large corporations and companies and help them out with their ESG, because I know that's a really hot topic for a lot of big companies now as they want to be able to make their ESG standards and things like that. How are you guys helping out on that stance?
Yeah, one of the things we found out, because of course we're about feeding, right? So we developed a sensational model for the corporate world. It was feeding kids. We went in, it's a team building program. And we found out that it wasn't so sensational. And the reason being was, especially the younger people, and we all know this because we've seen a bunch of young people traveling around the world really passionate about a cause. But if people are passionate about a cause and the company is telling them that they need to get passionate about another cause, obviously that's going to lead to some friction. And that so often, which is what's happening right now, leads to people leaving. And so when we did ours, the feedback was good. It was a team building, and they were which team was going to feed the most kids, and we beta tested that, and it was very positive. But the engagement wasn't what we thought it should be. And so when we did a deep dive into that, we realized that it was because there was people that were passionate about other causes. And so they said, "Hey, that's great, but yeah, we're not doing it because we're passionate about climate or whatever it may be." So we felt then the only real solution if we wanted to get in the corporate world, and we're certainly not going to ignore the corporate world, was to create a program. And we ended up co-creating it with a tech company, which I ended up buying into. And it's called the Social Impact Challenge. And by the way, we really did this because as we delved deeper into the whole space, we realized that 93% of all corporations in Canada and the United States are pre-selecting those sustainable development goals and telling their employees, these are the ones that our company is going to be. And that doesn't work anymore because they just won't get engaged. That's a flawed strategy. So what we decided to do is build this model where it's a team, same as all of them. And when the employees go on and they click on, the first thing they see is all 17 sustainable development goals. And they get to choose the ones they're passionate about. And when they click on the one they're passionate about, there's 25 different challenges that they can do that actually the algorithms pick up the impact it's having, and they give them a point system. And so now it's a gamified version, which of course young people love, and they're competing against each other who can get more points, but they're doing that based on the causes they care about. And at the end of it, it's usually a month-long program. At the end of that program, the cool thing about that is now the employees are telling the company what they need to care about. And that's the way it should be anyway. And they'll build up more emotional connection. They've got more, obviously, measurable impact because everything they do now is measurable, which goes into the ESGs. And so I think, first of all, I think every company in North America should be doing that program, not just because it's mine, but because then it'll give them that information and it'll improve culture. It'll do a lot of different things, and it will go to the ESGs, and investors will look at that and say, wow, this is really cool. So I think that's a real strong program. There is obviously a feeding one on there. So if they're passionate about that, they can still do that. But we have challenges on there like Four Oceans, a partner of ours, which is a for-profit social enterprise, I might add. And you can buy bracelets and all that kind of stuff of the plastic that came right out of the ocean and got recycled. So a lot of really good stuff that we put in there. So it's a really good program.
Yeah, that's great. Being able to connect with your employees and gamify things, you're just tapping into so many different points that really help from a psychological level to help people be engaged. And that's really important, especially in this day and age. And where do you see the future of the giving industry? Where do you see it going over the next 5 years or so?
I think you're going to see more and more models come out that will involve those three things. Which somebody asked me the other day, does this mean the end of the charity world? No, the charities are huge. And again, they're doing good work. You start getting into St. Jude's and they're saving lives and all that kind of stuff. And where people might argue their overheads are too high and all, that's all, you know what, it is what it is. But if we can come up with new models that become collaborative and are going to support them anyway, because they are doing good work, as I said before, it's not like they're embezzling money or anything like that. So I think the future is going to be for-profit social enterprises because you need to bring purpose and profit together. So I think that does it better anyway. And I think you see more collaborations. I think the charities are going to start opening up and saying, yeah, let's partner together. Let me send my volunteers to you to feed. And that's what we're hoping that our franchise model does in every community is bring them all together and say, this does work. And once we do a couple of these communities and show it does, it'll be very difficult for anybody not to say, let's work together on this. So I think for ours might be the leader in the field, but there's going to be a whole bunch of other people coming along. And that's all great. Somebody asked me the other day, what if somebody comes along and copies your model? You see the typical mindset. I'm like, fantastic. He's what? What are you talking about? I'm like, isn't my goal to end hunger? If somebody else comes along and does the same thing, isn't that good? What do you think? And a lot of people don't grasp that. But if you're doing good and you're really focused on the end cause, I was asked where we'd be in 10 years from now. I said, hopefully out of business. The lady was floored with that. She's, what? I'm like, yeah, hopefully we've done our job and we're going to be investing in repurposing food and doing all the stuff that needs to be done. It's not just about continuing to manufacture food and give food to these people. We need to solve this problem, and we're just starting. Right now, we're in the infant stages.
Yeah, definitely. That is the goal. Like the end goal is to solve the problem. I mean, and if you're able to do that, like check, like good job. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. And in terms of for RTG, what are you guys plans for the next 6 months here?
Purpose-driven artists will launch next month. Head office will be Geneva, but again, we're feeding North America. That's the other thing. Somebody asked me, well, are you feeding people there? No, we're not. We're feeding people here, and then we're helping people everywhere else. So that's what we do everywhere, even RTG Group Asia, which will have head office in Hong Kong, investors in Hong Kong, but we'll still be feeding Americans. And then sending money back there and then help doing a whole bunch of other causes, including possibly feeding if they need it. But that will be up to our team there to do that. And so it's all about doing good everywhere, but it's all done because we're feeding people in North America. So we've got Purpose-Driven Asia that will be open in the next 90 days. Purpose-driven artists. But the big ones for us really are twofold over the next few months is number one is our new charity, which is called Recycle Giving. And the other one, which is really important to us, and I think will probably be one of our biggest, is a purpose-driven travel. Purpose-driven travel will be the franchise model. We're really excited about that one. A lot of other people are excited about it too. As I said, we talked to a lot of professional athletes and they all want to get involved, which is fantastic. Yeah, so those are the ones. I think that we're pretty much set now. We've got the plans now for all of 2023 is with the ones we just mentioned. We'll be focusing on them, individual teams, of course. And then who knows what else I'll come up with during the year because I won't be those anymore anyway. So I'll be able to come up with some new things. I know we've already got some people very interested in the vegan experience. So although we don't have a particular date, there are definitely people that want to run with that. And so that will launch sometime in 2023.
Awesome. Very exciting times. And I love to ask this question just because I get so many different answers, and they're always very insightful. What are you currently learning right now?
Oh, I'm at a point right now in my life, Billy, where I've never learned as much every day as I'm learning right now. I'm consistently learning. I learn about patience. I'm not the same person I was even 10, 15 years ago. And I like it, by the way. I like the person I've become. And you probably know this, but a lot of people do, but athletes tend to be a little bit, arrogant. And one of the reasons we have to be is because we're always telling ourselves how good we are, because we're competing against everybody else, and everybody else is telling us how good we are, and we're just agreeing with them. But for me, the learning curve has been so high, but it's nonstop. I literally learn every day. I've got other people. I become almost like a sponge these days. And I'm listening to what other people are talking about, and the field, the giving space in general, or the social impact space, whatever you want to call it. There's people doing all different things in it. They're really focused about doing good, and whether or not it's going to be successful or not, that's what they're focused on. I love that, and I love learning the different ways to do it. We're partnering up with a lot of different companies in the space, and that's really good too, because again, collaboration is a big thing for us. So yeah, I'm just in a huge learning curve. I feel like a kid again, and yeah, it's fun. I'm having a lot of fun.
That's great. Always got to have fun in life. It's just
For sure.
the way to live it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And if somebody wants to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, wants to get involved, find out a way that their nonprofit can figure out a way to get into the sustainable funding program, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm the most active on LinkedIn. Every morning I'm on LinkedIn. I post every day. I respond to all the messages. That's really the best. I get so many emails and everything sometimes. But on LinkedIn, I always take my time there. I enjoy that. Somebody asked me the other day about the morning posts, and they're like, yeah, I love your morning posts and everything. Who are they for? And I said right away, they're for me. I'm glad that everybody else is getting something out of them, but they're for me. And he was shocked. He was like, really? I'm like, yes. I get up every morning. I inspire myself. It's freaking fantastic. But I'm on there. I spend like an hour every morning because I get up pretty early. So that's usually the best place. I accept all invites, so you don't have to disconnect with me or follow me, but you can send messages. And that's always the best for me. They can always email me at, Clarke, RTGGroupInc.com. But otherwise, that's the real one. The only thing I tell people all the time is don't call me, because I never answer my phone. I just never. Now with Zoom and everything, I love Zoom calls. We can look at each other. We can talk. Talking on the phone now is like almost foreign to me. It's I don't want to tell you. How about I give you a call? I don't like the phone. It texts me and then we can set the Zoom call. I like it. And when Google tells us that the future is videos and everything, yeah, I'm saying, yeah, no kidding, it is. You don't even want to talk to somebody on the phone without being able to see them now. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the best way.
Yep, definitely. You're able to read expressions. It's so much
easier. It's better. You can look at the person. You can find out what they're thinking. You say something funny. They don't laugh. You're like, that was a joke, right? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm okay. And then they laugh. Otherwise, on the phone, they're just saying, what an idiot this guy is. And you're thinking that you're so funny.
Right. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was awesome having you on here. And I definitely will be able to have you back on the show sometime. I know next year you guys have got so much more coming along. So it'd be great to see where you're at in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months.
Yes.
So I'd love to have you back on the show sometime. And thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And anytime you want me, give me a call.
And if you enjoyed learning about Stephen's RTG group of companies, then I invite you to check out this interview with We Hero. They also partner with nonprofits and large corporations to provide transformational volunteer experiences for employees of large corporations. So to keep in line with impacting nonprofits and helping them change the world, make sure you check out this interview with We Hero.